I'm just sitting here waiting for my son to get done with work so I could take him home. And driving down here to get him, he works at Walmart, um, night shift, as you can see from the light out. It kind of hit me that, there's people call it a generational gap, but it's really not a generational gap. It's just a time moves on gap, if anything. You know, I remember when I was a kid, I'm 52 years old, and I remember when I was 16, 17, 18 years old. I grew up in a town, little town. It's called Chardon, Oregon. I don't know if anybody knows about it or not, because, growing up it was like 2,000 people, and then we got a federal prison in, and they added that to the population, so now it's like 4,000 people. But, we would go out at night, myself and my younger sister, she's 5 years younger than me, and we would walk all over the place. From one end of town to the other end of town. We'd go to a friend's house and walk home. We'd be, you know, leaving the house. And we lived like kind of on the outside of town, so there was like a stretch where you walked where there was no sidewalks. Large trucks would drive by, and you just kind of hope that they didn't blow you off the side of the road. But we would walk, and we would walk to town, and we'd go to the little store. It's called TJ's. I don't know what it's called now. It's owned by somebody else, but we'd watch TJ's, and then we'd go to different friends' houses and stuff like that, and just walk all over the place. And sometimes we'd be walking downtown at like 9, 10, 11 o'clock. Um, there really wasn't a police presence in the town because county was in charge of the policing of the area. And so even though curfew was 10 o'clock, sometimes we wouldn't be walking back home until like midnight. And there really wasn't any worry about it. It was a different time. You didn't have to really worry about these people out there kidnapping kids, or you know SA wasn't as big of a threat. Strangers weren't going to pull up and pull you into a van, and then they'd find your violated body somewhere, as there is now. I mean, obviously now we live in a bigger town, since the town I grew up in definitely didn't have a Walmart. The town I'm in now is about 21,000 people, but it makes me nervous. It's about almost 10 o'clock at night, in May, so the weather's fairly decent, even though it is, as you can tell from this flag flapping, that it is a bit breezy out. But shorts and tank top weather. Um, but it's a very real concern nowadays, that you can't just let your kids go out and walk around, because not only do you have like kidnapping and SA and all of that as a threat, and people who do drugs. You don't know if they might be violent or not, or any of that. And it's really just, it's not the world that I grew up in. It's not the environment I grew up in. Gone is the time that if your kid's out doing something that they shouldn't, that Martha down the street is calling you, oh, hey, by the way, I just saw your kid and they were throwing rocks at a cat. Gone is the day that, if your kid's not at school and your friend sees him and says, hey, get back to school because I'm calling your mom. Um, because even though this isn't like the biggest of towns at 21,000 people, there's just not that same community feeling in a lot of ways. And you never know what is going to be happening to your kids, or what they're going to be influenced by. I mean, my son's 16, so he knows things he shouldn't be doing. Doesn't mean he doesn't do some of them, but you know um, it's not like I've got a little 7 or 8 year old that's out walking around. So I do feel a little bit more safe and a little more comfortable with that. But it was just something that really struck me, this difference in the world. The things have changed. We have the school violence, and the kid-on-kid violence is rampant. And it's just something that as parents, be you a parent who's in your 20s or your 30s or your 40s, or like me, I mean, like I said, I'm 52. You have to be very aware and be flexible enough in your mind to be aware of what these differences are and to really know exactly where they're coming from and be ready to roll with the times and understand those differences and adapt so that way you can help your kids navigate those very unclear waters and just to get through them, because you just want them to have the very safest childhood that they can possibly have. And there are things out there that I've heard about kids doing and what they have been exposed to, and it's definitely a terrifying world. And I just hope that moving into the future, when it's my son sitting here looking back thinking I'm 52 years old and this is what my kids are doing right now, that he can still say, I know where my kid is and I know what my kid is doing and my kid is safe, and by the way, I can be flexible enough to try to meet some of that and not get locked into the, oh, there's a generation gap and I just have to deal with it.